What's up, y'all? Mark Smith, JBS Training Group. Let's talk about doubles, man. What is doubles? What is not doubles? And kind of give you an overview of how my brain conceptualizes this exercise and my experience with it, coming from a place where I knew nothing about what it was to a place where now I think it is probably the best shooting exercise for just shooting that I've ever seen. The caveat there is that it's only the best shooting exercise for shooting that I've ever seen if you do it correctly and you understand what you're doing. I think a big disconnect these days, now that doubles has had this kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a resurgence or this bandwagon type like fanboyism that's starting to catch on with it. Everybody's doing it. A lot of people are teaching it, and I've heard some explanations, and I've seen some explanations, and I've heard about some explanations that are frankly just big indicators, big red flags that a lot of people don't understand what they're doing with this. Ask me how I know, right? I used to be that guy. So I'm just going to take you through the phases of it as I experienced it. Talk about what you might perceive versus what is actually supposed to be occurring and things like that. And just try to help you understand it a little bit better. I'm going to keep this video as short as I can, but this is a very in-depth topic, and it's going to require a little bit of explanation. So stick with me, man, and we'll get there eventually. Appreciate it. So right off the bat, let's go ahead and hit technically what is doubles. Doubles is an exercise where you're going to fire 2 shots. There's going to be a distinct pause after those 2 shots. Then you're going to fire 2 more shots. You can do as many sets of this as you want to. You can also do this in varying ways that we'll kind of talk about. Why is it 2 shots? The objective of doubles is to explore some things that you may not get from shooting a single round, right? Such as how your grip may be changing in recoil, what your vision is doing in recoil, what's happening on shot 2 with your firing hand, all these different things that just simply don't manifest as well with single shots. Now, at first, you might be thinking, well, it's doubles, it's 2 shots, that's a gamer thing, right? Because it's 2 shots on paper, you know, and that's their game. No, triples is absolutely a thing. Quadruples is a thing. You can do as much of this as you like. However, 2 is going to be the minimum required number of rounds to get the good out of the exercise, and 3 I just don't think is required. So in the name of saving ammo, saving time, and saving energy, I just don't do 3 very often because 2 is enough. So there's a distinct pause in between each set for a very specific reason when you do this a certain way. So everybody's been talking about the different levels of confirmation and things like that we give sights and sight pictures. This is brilliant. I've never heard it explained this way. The first time I ever heard of confirmation levels was on a YouTube video from Hwanzik Kim. I didn't know about Hwanzik at the time, and for the longest time I had struggled with telling dudes that would shoot basically the same confirmation level at every target what was going on. Like, it was hard for me to say, no, you're doing it wrong, do it this way, but without, it didn't give them a depth of understanding of what I meant. When I heard Hwanzik talk about confirmation levels for the first time, I was like, this is brilliant. That's exactly what needs to be said about this. The confirmation levels are basically just, it's the attention that you're giving the sight picture, understanding that there are multiple different levels of confirmation and they're all still aiming. If I am shooting at a 3-yard open target, I'm aiming at that target, but the aiming that I'm doing is very different than the aiming I would do on a 25-yard B8-0 in a pistol, right? They're both aiming, so how do you know the difference? Well, it's in the level of confirmation that you're giving the sights. The way that I like to shoot doubles predominantly is going to be with a very, very low level of confirmation. It's just going to be a flash of sight touching the spot that I'm looking at. It happens at such a pace that my brain cannot consciously keep up with what's happening as it's happening. So the pause becomes very important for me. The pause is where I consciously come back to earth and I think about, I analyze, what did I see and what did I feel, right? And the objective is to tie conscious thought and correlate what you felt and what you saw with a cause and effect of what is occurring downrange on a target, right? So what we're basically going to do is we're going to shoot 2 shots as fast as we can pull the trigger, pause, think about what we felt, what we saw, and then continue to do this. You can do this for as many sets as you want. I typically do 4 to 5, something like that, and then I'll change the yard line. A lot of very interesting stuff starts to happen when we do this, and so I'm going to try not to get lost in the weeds on this. This is, again, this is a very deep thing that I've explored over the past 2 years or so. Let's start with the first one, which is going to be the visual piece, right? Which I think is the biggest piece of this entire puzzle. All right, so the visual piece of doubles is basically this. Doubles will exploit your lack of visual acuteness, if I can say that. Basically, I think what we should constantly strive to do is to put bullets in a very small spot based on, you know, the relative distance to the target. At a very close distance, I'm looking at something that would be the size of a watch face, right? Like something small, and this is white boy watch face, not Lil Wayne watch face, right? Normal watch. And what I'm attempting to do is hold my vision there no matter what happens. Now, what doubles will do, especially if you're not used to it, you're not comfortable with it, or you are dot focused and don't know it, is as the gun goes bang bang, right, this flashy red orb, which is the highest contrast thing in your environment, will cause you to want to watch it bounce up and down. I think a lot of people are doing this and they just don't know that they do it. One of the things that I'm pretty solid on at this point in my experiences with this and dealing with other shooters and traveling around, you know, shooting with everybody, I think there's basically three kind of shooters. Guys that are constantly struggling to stay target focused, guys who are dot focused and don't know that they are dot focused, and guys that shoot so slow that it doesn't matter anyway. If you start to watch a dot bounce around on a target, what you'll notice is very similar to this. So if you put your eyeball here, and as the dot comes in, say bang to your computer screen. Ready? Bang, bang, bang. Right now, put your eyeball here and say bang when it comes across the center of the hand. Here we go. So what you'll probably notice is that when you're watching this, you know that the dot is somewhere on the hand, but you don't really know where it is, right? Same exact thing happens with a red dot and or sights, right, on a brown target. You'll know that it's somewhere on brown, but because your vision is not here and it's actually here, you'll just be shooting kind of all over the place as soon as you perceive that the color is touching the brown. What this tends to manifest as, for me, is going to be high right kind of shots. And it can manifest as the push down into the lower part of the target. So what happens is bang, and then we chase this thing up into the atmosphere, and one of two things either happens. As it falls back down, we go bang, right, and we'll end up hitting high because we see red on brown, just like with the hand demo there. Or we'll see it way off the target, especially at the further distances, like 20, 25, even 30 yards. We'll say, hey, no, get back, right? And we'll start to drive it back down to where it just left from, even though we don't really have to drive it that far. Another really cool thing visually that occurs. At 5 to 10 yards, it's not uncommon to see guys shoot pretty good at this. And when I say pretty good, I mean like baseball size groups, right? 5, even up to 10 yards. There's this magical like threshold of vision that occurs somewhere around the 12-yard line, where I think the target's perception starts to change what we're doing, meaning the gun appears, the dot appears, the sights appear as if they are leaving farther than they have. And so that increases our propensity to want to put stuff into the gun that may not already, that may not be there at the 5 and 10 yard lines, right? So at 5 yards, the visual looks a lot like this, right? And that doesn't really scare anybody. That looks totally doable, totally manageable. I'm not afraid of it. At 25 yards, we start to see stuff that looks like this. What you have to internalize with the visual piece of this is that as long as you plant your vision in a small spot on this target, the size of that spot remains relatively the same based on your perception at distance. If you look at the entire target or you try to watch everything as it happens, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as distance increases. And I think that this drives a little bit of anxiety as far as like putting stuff into a gun that shouldn't be there, just because the shot difficulty is perceived as harder and could arguably be harder. But the primary thing that we have to internalize is, if you do the exact same thing at 5 yards as you do at 25 yards and you don't change anything, the gun movement is still the same, even though the perception has changed, right? So that's a really, really hard thing visually to grasp, or it was for me for a long time. And if I can create a fixture in my body, like I can turn my body into a fixture, somebody machined me, right? And as I'm firing the gun, it literally does the exact same thing every single time. As long as I don't change that, here's this aha moment that I had. If you can hold golf ball size group at 5 yards, at 25 yards, geometry, physics, and the world would indicate that group size based on angles of deviation and distance should not be more than about 5 times as big as that golf ball at 5 yards, right? If it is, I believe, directly correlated to the visual aspect of what you're perceiving and what you're putting into the gun that may not already be there. Doubles will help you consciously identify what that is, right? Meaning you will now be aware of the fact that you're doing this. A lot of people are doing this and they don't know that they're doing it. So let's switch over into kind of like how I read a target, and it gives me some insight into what I could do to put my brain on something and think about certain things that I hadn't been aware of before. All right, guys, so here we are around about 5 yards. I'm gonna shoot this a couple of different ways and kind of show you how the target can manifest certain things and propensities that you might have. In order for this to work, and I think to be like most effective, what we have to do is we have to shoot this faster than what we're typically comfortable with shooting. The goal of this and the definition of success is not an all alpha pretty group. The definition of success is to shoot as fast as you wish you could and open your mind, Craig, right, to the awareness of what you're putting into the gun, and let the target help you identify where you might want to pay some attention to overcome some potential habits you may have, right? So right out the gate, man, I'm just gonna do like, I don't know, 5 sets of 2. Pay attention to the distinct pause in between each set, and I'm gonna attempt to manifest some things that we see pretty commonly when dudes will do something like this, right? So here we go. So let's talk about it.
So sometimes it goes really great, and sometimes these little guys show up. Now you have to be very careful at around 5 yards or so. A lot of guys will look at this and they'll say, oh, I did real good. I did all alpha. The problem with this is if you don't apply the correct level of analytical critique to it, this can make you feel good and lead you down the wrong road at distance. At distance, right, think about 5 times this dispersion. We are now close to being off target, if not like definitely off target. So the target will catch at a closer distance, but at a farther distance, we have to understand that this is not going to be acceptable. Therefore, the level of analytical critique that I'm going to give this target, I have work to do. That is me pushing on a gun. So that was shot 1 to the center, and then as it starts to lift, I drive it back down with a whole lot of firing hand tension and arm pressure, trying to put it back where it goes, and I shoot when I see the dot pass the spot. This is the low left push. This can manifest left, it can manifest down, or low left is typically the trend. Let's talk about a different one.
All right, so next is gonna be some support hand issues that might show up. A lot of people start out with a really solid grip, but as the shooting is occurring, that grip will change and it will leave them, right? Meaning this thing starts to just kind of hang out and kind of sit there as more of a decoration than anything else. I'm interested in, does the target exploit anything about that that you might could use? So I will tell you that typically what I will see when a guy's support hand just gives up the ghost and it's just not with us anymore, is the shots will trend typically like vertically high. There's not a whole lot of angle in it most of the time. It's almost always straight up and down, so I'm going to demo that for you real quick. This is going to be the support hand just kind of resting on the gun, and I'm going to shoot it at the same pace I shot the other ones. Watch. But again, the demo works. The support hand giving up on us does something where we start to drive these shots up. Let me show you that.
So that is the manifestation of weak or barely there support hand grip. Shot 1 goes bang, gun lifts, and there's no structure in the support hand to help anything happen to push it back down, and so it ends up just trending high. So the gun is still laying high when the second shot goes off, and that causes the second bullet to trend high. Not uncommon at all to see shots go completely off over the head at distance. Let me show you another one.
So another thing that can start to make shots trending high, for me, for some reason, this always manifests kind of high and a favor to the right, is watching a dot, right? So when we start out, our eyes are here, but as the gun fires, it's like our vision opens up like a camera lens zooming out. We want to watch everything and try to control everything. And I think if you start watching everything and you start watching a dot, right, the dot lands and moves about in this area, right? And you'll start to see shots start to trend up in this area because that's where you're looking at, right? Pay close attention to this. This is not typically evident immediately when you start doing this, like meaning it'll happen, but your awareness of the feeling in your eyeballs is not necessarily there. But that's where our upper right and or right shots can also come from. Sometimes, if you're watching this, it can also cause you, like I said earlier, to push a gun low. It's all based on your awareness of what you're doing. You may be pulling a trigger like this with your entire hand, or you may be just simply watching a dot leave the target and trying to drive it back down. It's up to you to consciously identify what that is. So when you start to add a little bit of distance to the equation, now it's somewhere around 10 yards, I want you to watch what happens with the push on the gun. So I'm gonna push the gun back down to the spot for the second shot. Here we go. What we can start to get is the egregious effect of pushing on a gun that manifests as this.
So as you can see, that little bit of push that went from there is now doubling and sometimes even tripling, going all the way out to the lower corners. Be very aware of this and understand that if that is what is happening on your target, it is directly correlated to you pushing the gun down there. The gun is not doing that on its own.
All right, guys, so I'm gonna shoot this from 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 and print a target for you. I'm gonna show you how I would read that target and what it might give me some ideas to work on. I'm gonna use a shot timer for this. The reason that I use a shot timer, I'm not measuring total time, I'm not measuring draw, I'm not measuring any of that crap. What I am measuring is the time between shots. So for me, what I am looking for, I think for this to be truly predictive, meaning I'm predicting what the gun is about to do because the behavior is so consistent, I think it needs to be at a 0.25 or less split time. If you get over that split time, you start to add in more conscious aiming than a predictive shot really is. And I think that if you're trying to figure out how to make the gun behave consistently at speed, then you should run it at speed. Again, I got to reiterate, man, this is not an exercise where all alpha is the desired goal. Like that means you did good, because you can shoot all alpha really, really slow and not really get anything out of it. My intention is to shoot as fast as I wish I could and pay so much attention to what's happening that I start to make conscious corrections and start to correlate what I feel and see with what the target's telling me my potential patterns are that are showing up. So let me shoot it for you real quick and then we'll talk about it, and then I'll close it out with some final thoughts. A whole bunch of 25 for you. All right, man, so you get what you get. You don't throw a fit, right? On that run, got to the 25-yard line, had that failure to fire. I lost a lot of focus on that, no big deal. The immediate set after, this guy showed up, and then these guys started to show up. So what I'm looking for, ideally, if you want a definition of success, I want the center group to begin to open concentrically as the distance increases, and I'm looking for any sort of predictable patterns that the target may tell me. So again, for this is going to be me pushing on the gun lifts, I push it back down, and I'm missing over here. When it lifts and I clamp with that support hand, that's where I start to get this. Overall, I'm not like, I don't hate this. I hate him for sure, and I hate him, but the rest of these, maybe even these two, you know, it could be better, yeah, for sure. But if you need a way to like make your brain or your self-image or your fragile ego or whatever feel better about this, watch. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I just covered those up, how do you feel about that at that pace at 25 yards with around 50 shots fired? I mean, this is acceptable for me. I'm not mad at this at all. So all I've got to do is for 4 of those shots, figure out how to turn off whatever it was that was throwing these everywhere. And man, this is absolutely how I wish I could shoot at distance at smaller targets all the time, right? So let's talk about it, and we'll close it out. All right, man. So a couple of things on this. Number one, as my buddy Matt Pranka says, and I love this, this is not an engagement strategy. We have to learn to separate scenarios and exercises. This is a ladder drill. This ain't the NFL game, right? So don't go in it thinking like, oh, well, there's no accountability, or, oh, it ain't made for that. It's made to increase your accountability by learning how to make the gun behave
in a predictable fashion, so that when you add just a slight increase to the conformation, now you can shoot very, very accurately at a pretty good speed and maintain a whole lot of accountability and control. Next, the first time I ever was introduced to this was by my buddy Nick Young over at Velox Training Group. He hit me up, told me, oh, you need to go shoot doubles. He didn't really give me a lot of context on what that meant though. So for the longest time, I just shot 2 shots real fast because I thought like that's just what we're doing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I feel like, based on watching a lot of dudes at class go through this, that they are in that same boat. They're just shooting 2 shots and they're not really sure what we should be doing here. As I started to do it more and more, I began to kind of catch certain things like, that was weird. My vision got weird. Or, that was weird. I felt something weird in my support hand, or so on and so forth. My awareness of what was happening based on my input to the gun was increasing, and I didn't realize it. The third phase of that was I got to a point where I absolutely knew what I was doing. Like I could feel and or see exactly what was happening, but I couldn't turn it off, right? This was the most frustrating time of my entire shooting career because my awareness had been increased to the point where I knew exactly what was going on, but I couldn't choose to stop it, right? So a lot of you that know me know I'm not a smart man, right? I know what love is, but I do know that if you will give 100% of your willpower to anything in life, the needle will move eventually. And so, you know, I said, shoot, man, I'm just gonna keep doing it. I'm just gonna keep doing it and try to turn it off. And I'll be doggone if all of a sudden, like, stuff started to tighten up a little bit. My egregious misses that were, you know, common became not so common. My definition of success as a result and outcome-based approach to something like this, I'm looking for 90% alpha at this point in my shooting journey with it. That doesn't happen all the time, right? That's just a goal. It's just a kind of a standard. Standards are not easy. Standards are meant to push you, right? And so if you shoot this and you're like, man, that's really hard. Yeah, I know, right? If it was easy, Girl Scouts would be doing it. So I say all that to say, I believe it took me somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 rounds of shooting this exercise before I really understood the value of it, before I really understood what I was doing with it. And I still am learning, right? I still am learning more every day. But I think as far as putting bullets on target, as far as gaining points in minimum time, this is the single greatest exercise you can ever learn to master, if you will. Because it's all of shooting. If I can make the gun predictable, I can make it behave the exact same way every single time, and I cannot put anything into it, I can become a fixture that just runs the gun, then what else do you want to do as far as shooting, right? Like that's what the goal is. Try to not be so hard on yourself, man. It's again, if you're a result and outcome based guy, it's like the Queen on the movie 300, right? This will not you will not enjoy this. This will not be over quickly. It's not meant for that. It's meant for you to learn something. If you go into it thinking, man, today I want to learn something, then the target won't make you feel that bad. That's why you're shooting it that fast. There ain't nobody out here, you know, gonna make you stand beside it and take a Facebook picture and put it all over the internet like that's, you know. Take the accountability part of like, oh, I have no accountability. Yes, you could choose to have accountability to yourself. Like, you have to choose to get better at this, or you will never get better at this. I know, what a novel idea, right? So, you know, if you had never shot doubles or you're not sure how to shoot doubles, I hope this video helps you, man, and it gives you an idea. There's still a lot to talk about, but I don't want to make you an hour-long video on it. I just wanted to kind of dabble in how I use it and the phases I've gone through to get to where I'm at with it. I love it. I shoot it more than I shoot anything else, and I hope that you guys will get out there and get after it. If there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. If you got any questions, comments, concerns on this, drop it in the comments box down below. Like, share, subscribe, all that kind of crap. And see you guys out on the range, man. Mark Smith, JBS Training Group.